Welcome. Thank you for coming, and we shall now endeavour to inform you, to the best of my ability, how to actually make that contact with the spirit world. The world from which we came, the world to which we return after our physical death. Now, there have been plenty of detractors, debunkers, and all points in between, including orthodox religionists who would preach eternal life and talk about life everlasting, but then qualify it with telling their adherents that the only way to have that is to believe in the particular doctrine that they are putting forward, or to believe in a particular personage, leader or prophet. We know as spiritualists that this is not actually true, and we serve the truth. And in that way we do God's work. We do the work of the Great Spirit, the Spirit that imbues everything, the great first cause, least understood. So we shall try and explain how we access the communication lines to that world of spirit from which we came and to which we all hope we return, because nobody wants to think that they're going to live their life here and then go to nothing. We all wish to be remembered, but it's not possible when we look at our ancestors. That's why so many people are looking at their family trees and they go back 100, 200, 300, 400 years, but they can't go back as far as the Garden of Eden. So basically we have to understand that all those people from which we sprang, biologically speaking, walked this earth once. And even if we don't know them now, or their names, or anything about them, when we return to the spirit world where they live, we will meet them. What is more, as spiritualists, we understand that we are part of them even while we are here and they are not. So we can refer back to them. Now, the Native American Indians and many other indigenous native peoples understood this very well. Of course, with the advent of monotheism and orthodoxy, this was held to be not quite the thing to talk about. But when people talk about everlasting life, say for instance in the Christian tradition, do they mean just on their own, that we're going to go and be on our own over there? Or are we going to in fact meet all the people that have been before us, whose DNA we carry? So, on that note as well, we talk about mitochondria, which is that which we inherit from our maternal line. And that, of course, is another story and begs the question of whether our God, the Great Spirit, is our Father alone, or Father and Mother as we understand it. And we say must be Mother and Father, because that is the way it was designed to be. There was a time when we didn't either have only two sexual genders. We had three, and that was accepted. So perhaps also it's a time to look at that as well. We don't need gender in spirit, because we have no need to reproduce. Therefore, the compunction to find a mate of usually the opposite sexual gender in order to procreate is taken away. Jesus himself said, there is no giving or taking in marriage in heaven, and that's what he was trying to tell people himself. Now, how do we actually then communicate with our friends and family who are in heaven, who are in that world of spirit? And here we won't touch upon the lower regions. We'll leave them to their own devices for the time being. Much safer. And how do we communicate then with all these people that we know and the people also that we don't know on the other side? We behave as channels for that communication, and we allow ourselves to go into an altered state of consciousness in order for our minds to operate fully, which of course they don't, not while we're down here. And our mind, we say, as spiritualists and in our understanding, are not irrevocably linked to our brain mechanism, our physical brain. In fact, there was a case of a child who lived for 3 years and seemed to function fairly normally, and when the child died, it was found that there was no brain. Explain that. So our mind is made up of spirit matter. Now, we know scientifically that 99% of all space is what they call dark matter, or invisible to us. So similarly, our mind is made up of that dark matter, and some people's minds seem darker than others. We won't go into that. And I won't mention any names. Pupils, past, present or future. So how do we do that? We can go to workshops, we can look at lessons on the television, video, YouTubes, and we can find a lot of information coming from people. But at the end of it all, it seems to me that no one is really any the wiser of the actual nitty-gritty. How do we elevate our consciousness? How do we communicate? How do we raise our vibrations? How do we sit in the power? That's a good one. That's always a good one. Sit in the power. And the power of the spirit. Okay, where is it? Who is it? Some people even talk about this power as some kind of energy that suddenly comes upon one, apparently, when you are in the right frame of mind. This doesn't sit very well with me. The other thing about what I've learned from the YouTube myself is that, well, if we can say learned, loosely speaking, is that you need to just want to do it, and it happens. I've also learned that some people say that it's only a gift available to a few, and you're not going to find out until you pay for some very expensive lessons whether you've got the gift or not. So basically, some of these people who purport to teach communication with spirit are actually throwing the onus of that back onto the student who would wish to do that. They're saying, well, if you can't do it, it's not because I haven't taught you properly, it's because you're not gifted. Then there's the other school, to which I belong, which says that everybody is gifted with being able to communicate with spirit, should they develop their abilities. Now, how do we develop our abilities? We can't just sit and wait for anything. And certainly we can't just sit and wait for the power of the Spirit to descend upon us like lemons. I recall, and now I'm like one of these old colonels I remember in Puna Puna. I recall taking a very large circle of enquirers at Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. And after the first session that we all had, there were about 25 of us all together, students were coming up to me and saying that they'd been sitting for various amounts of time previously. Not one of them was a newcomer to spiritualism and its practices. And they'd all been desperately trying to become mediums. Those who would have communication with the spirit world and of course in their case relay it to someone else after that. Here we're only concerned with getting that information for ourselves, communication with spirit for ourselves, to have our own understandings and our own conversation and communication and contact with them in that other world. And they were coming up to me and saying that this was the first time that they'd ever felt that they were able to make that contact with the spirit world. They'd always known about it, but they'd spent, and one lady had spent something like 20 years, and I say no lie here, 20 years waiting. And in 1 hour session, she was able to put all that 20 years of waiting into operation. Well, I think that I've probably spouted enough of my opinion on the world's religions and people's take on the afterlife and so on and so forth. And I do tend to go on rather a lot about that. But the main purpose of this talk is to try and give you the tools by which you can enjoy the wonderful situation that I have been in for many years now, of being able to have communication with my guides and helpers. And it doesn't matter that one of them, my first guide, told me that she'd never been a guide and she was not interested in being a guide. She would be my cooperator in spirit. And I've always tried to remember that, for instance. And I did get a couple of psychic clips around the head when I forgot that. However, I'm going to try and give you the tools to meet your own people who are there on the other side of this life, regardless of the kind of life they led here, regardless of the way in which they met their death. Because we are all, as the church and various other bodies would have us know, and they seem to know a lot more about it than we spiritualists do, sinners. So again, we have to draw a line and say, who is the biggest sinner here? And who gets into heaven and who doesn't? There is nobody standing at a gate barring the way for people who have lived less than perfect lives. The only perfect life is in the next life. And that is the truth. And we learn here by our mistakes. Our mistakes are sometimes engendered by ourselves, sometimes by other people. Nevertheless, we hope that we learn from our experience here on earth. Some people say this is why we're here, to learn these lessons. So therefore, let's not be too hard on the sinners. Okay, there are some crimes against humanity, against one's fellow human beings, and indeed animal kind, that should be met with repulsion. And yes, we ask what happens to people that we would deem evil in their intent and practice. well, what happens is that they too go on to inherit that next life, but they have to look at themselves. And there is such a place that they create for themselves, the conditions they create for themselves, where they themselves have to look at their transgression. They have to come to terms, they have to come to an understanding of the pain that they have inflicted upon others, because that's the real crime against humanity. Not going out after 12 o'clock at night wearing a dress if you're a man, or having an alcoholic drink when you shouldn't. And that's one who doesn't actually imbibe, and neither am I a man who goes out dressed as a woman. But nevertheless, we all have different idiosyncrasies in this life, and we all do things that we want to do that other people very often say are crimes. We're not going to suffer for them in the next life, not at all. Only the really evil, and we know who they are, have to go through a process of understanding and repatriation, if you like, into the kind of person that they should have been, and perhaps were in the beginning when they were first born to this life. So there we are. Having got that out of the way, people do ask about suicides, and that is what I meant when I said no matter how the death is met. And that's for another time. We still want to know how we get in touch. How do we hear people who are not here anymore? How do we see and feel them around us? We raise the frequency of our mental faculty, our mind. And we do this by slowing down our physical body. In just the same way as an archer or a golfer or someone who enters a pistol target shooting competition. We have to slow down our physical response. We have to become as near dead, ultimately, as we can. And the way we do that, we talk about the condition that we enter into when we are going to sleep. That is the best way. So, we enter into a condition which is neither wide awake or fast asleep, when our bodies relax, when our mind relaxes, and dare I say our brain relaxes. But before we do that, we must affirm that everything we do only for good, only in the truth, and only in the light. Why? Because, as I mentioned previously, there are darker places inhabited by, shall we say, lower spirited personalities, and we don't want to have anything to do with them. And the best way we can protect ourselves against that is to cover ourselves by our intention. And the road to hell is not paved with good intentions. The road to heaven is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with bad intentions. Whoever dreamed that one up got it wrong. So we say, everything I do only for good, only in truth and in the light. And then you can commence to start your journey of learning how you yourself can throw a line, open a line to that world of spirit where all is truth and light and good. And so we shall begin. We'll sit quiet, make sure that you are not going to be disturbed. You can play some music. These days it always tells you on a CD how long a track is going to be. So say 5 minutes to start you off. 10 minutes if you want. But then you relax to the music. You've said your affirmation. And I suggest that as a meditation, which it isn't really. We talk about meditations in spiritualism. They're not like meditations that are done outside of it. They're really spiritual journeys. And there are places in the world of spirit that you will be taken to, albeit in your mind's eye, but it's with your mind's eye that you will see when you have passed from this life to the next. Because there is no physical eyesight, it's mental eyesight. So we will take you to a place where you can further your development as a medium without having recourse to having to sit in a group of people or anybody else, and where you will meet with your own spirit helpers who will help you to develop your own abilities, your own gifts that you were born with, that everyone is born with. This spiritual journey that we will undertake is one that is provided for us, for you, by my group in spirit. They will tell me and I will tell you. And not to worry that, like the horoscopes that are printed by the 1,000 and million that apply to everybody born on a particular day or date, actually can fit. This is even more of a miracle than that, because whoever you are, this will fit you. So all you have to do is relax, close your eyes. You have made your quiet space for yourself. You have got some music. And listen to what I'm telling you, because I am only telling you what I hear myself from my group, who want to further your progression in this way of life. Imagine, if you will, because our imagination, that generated by our brain impulses, actually pulses at a very similar frequency to that which is used and usable by those in the spirit world, because theirs is the faster, finer frequency. Ours is the denser, slower frequency of life. And so we imagine that in front of us is a ball of light, just a ball of light. And in our mind we move towards that ball of light and step inside it and find that there is a bench inside that we can sit upon. And then we know that the ball of light is taking us on a journey. We're perfectly safe, perfectly warm, and perfectly relaxed. And we allow the ball of light to float away with us in it and take us we know not where. But we trust. We trust. And we know shortly we are set down. And outside of the ball of light, when we step out, we will see a beautiful meadow, beautiful colours, wonderful. We step outside our ball of light, which will wait for us for our return. And we will walk along the meadow, beautiful smells of the grass, flowers. There's a tree with a bench beneath. We walk along and sit ourselves down on that bench under that shady tree. There are other people there. We don't mind them, they don't mind us. Wandering around, enjoying the beautiful atmosphere, peaceful, imbued with a love that we can palpably feel. And as we sit there, we send out a thought. We ask if someone that we love, someone who loves us, might come and be allowed to join us as we sit on that bench under the beautiful shady tree. And as we sit and wonder, we see the person that we have wished to see. And they will come and join you on that bench for a little while. They may not be able to speak with you because you may not yet be able to hear in such a high frequency, but you will feel the love. So I will leave you there for just a moment, and then you will hear my voice again telling you when it is time to say goodbye to that person, to get up from the bench and walk slowly back. So wait for my voice. say goodbye, to make your farewell, to say that you will see them again, to rise from that bench and walk away towards that ball of light that you can see. As you walk back across the grass, flowers, lovely smell, feeling that love that's in the air there, the calm and the peacefulness, and come back to that ball of light and walk through and take your seat again on that bench and feel yourself once again journeying through time and space. Until you feel that you are back where you started. Get up from the bench, walk out of the ball of light into the place where you started this journey, and take your seat or your couch again. And when you feel ready, wiggle your fingers, wriggle your toes to get the circulation back. Take a nice deep breath, open your eyes, and there you are, back again. Well, now you've returned to some semblance of normality at least. I hope that you enjoyed that trip and that you thank the people responsible in that other world, because you too have a group of spirit entities, if you like, individuals in spirit who care for you and who are interested in your own development. And that includes, of course, your nearest and dearest that may well be over there and wanting you to do this work. And my own group, who know your group, will make sure that in the time to come that you will proceed and that you will attain the purpose for which you have attended this particular tutorial. It's a very nice thing to be able to talk to those who love you in spirit, particularly when there are lots of people down here who do not love you, because this is the human condition. As somebody said once upon a time, you can't please all the people all the time, and most spiritualists please very few people most of the time, so we have to just get on with it. The point about using our imagination that I touched on is that it is a frequency whereby we can accept communication from those in spirit. Now, how do we know the difference between what is our imagination and what is spirit input? Well, you have just experienced some spirit input. Firstly via myself as the medium, and secondly as the receptor, as a medium yourself for that spirit input. And if you want to know whether you imagined that journey or not, think about where you were. think about the golden ball of light. Think about getting out and walking across all that lovely grass, the flowers and everything, and seeing the bench, and whether or not you were fortunate enough on your first trip to meet somebody to join you on that bench, or that you just felt good. Nevertheless, it was somewhere that you went. The tree that you sat under, I'm sure you can remember. And if you were fortunate enough to have someone visit you, you will remember that too. Now, if it was just imagination, where would that put you? And you see, things of the imagination don't come with their own energy, with their own life. But what you've experienced has its own life. And that's how we can discern the spirit. That's how we can discern whether we've actually been to a place and seen it and met somebody or not. Just the same as when we're down here and we visited perhaps a holiday camp, or we've been to a museum, we can recall that because it's somewhere substantial that we've actually visited. The people that we've met there are substantial. We know that we've met them, and it's exactly the same feeling. So we know what has been imaginary and what has been reality. And just because it's a reality that you don't expect to experience doesn't make it any the less real. I have not sat here and imagined everything. I have been told what to say and what to do on your behalf by people I know are there. If that wasn't the case, first of all, they'd be locking me up, if they could. And secondly, it would be a waste of my time and yours. So be assured that this is the first step that you need to take to hone up your own faculty of mediumship. And I hope, my friend, that you will join me again when we can do some more work on your own spiritual development as a medium.